This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, Larry, are you our host today? Do you want to introduce Pam?
I'd be honored to do that. It's a real pleasure for me to welcome you, Pam, and let me just add a little bit beyond what was in the email invitation that all of you have seen and I'm sure read. A little additional information about Pam. From 2009 until 2020, she served as the executive director of Baptist Women in Ministry, where she was a resource for women serving in all areas of Christian ministry. She has used her voice as an advocate for women ministers, calling on Baptist churches to reimagine their futures, to rethink their leadership, and to recreate their identities. I did not know this about her, even though we taught together at McAfee. She is the author and or editor of 10 books, including The Story of Baptists in the United States, which she co-wrote with her husband, Keith. She's also been honored in several ways. President Durso was presented with the Carolyn Weatherford Crumpler Leadership Alumni Award from the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship. That was in 2018. She has the Lifetime Achievement Award by Christians for Biblical Equality, 2015. I didn't know of that organization, so I'm learning something today, Pam. And she can claim some camaraderie with the rest of us. She also received the Baptist History and Heritage Society's W.O. Carver Distinguished Service Award. That's the name we all know and appreciate from Southern Seminary history. Pam, it's a delight to have you here. I do want to say a word about Steve Shealy. I think we're honored to have Steve here as well. He is a Ph.D. graduate of Southern. Some of you may not know. Taught with outstanding effectiveness at Shorter College, and this past year retired from SACS, the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools,
Commission on
accrediting agency for our region, and he's a real expert on seminary accreditation. Pam and Steve may want to have some arguments about some of those things today, but thank you for joining us, Steve, and thank you, Pam, for being with us. We'll turn it to you.
Thank you, Larry. Well, I am so glad to see so many familiar faces on the Zoom room. Some of you I have had friendships with for many years, and one of you has been my pastor for a while. Bob Browning was pastor of Smoke Rise, and my family, we were members there for a while. So I appreciate this invitation from Larry. And as Larry said, I had opportunity to teach at McAfee School of Theology while I was executive director of Baptist Women in Ministry and had my office on the campus there in Mercer in Atlanta. And so Larry and I had lots of hallway conversations. Larry asked me to tell you some about Central Seminary, my position at which I now serve as president of Central. I joined Central in June of 2020. So it was a great time for a family to move across the country in the middle of a pandemic and start a brand new job. So, you know, I do hard things. That's what everyone said to me when I took this job. You can do hard things, but they didn't say in the middle of a global pandemic, you can do hard things. But, for 2 years, I called myself the pandemic president. So now I'm just the president. And I'll celebrate my 4th anniversary on June 1st. It has been a wonderful ride. I have learned so much as the president of Central, a new position for me. I was leading a nonprofit, teaching classes adjunctively, didn't have a lot of administrative experience in higher ed. And sometimes I have a position because I'm not your traditional seminary president. They tell me they hired me for my leadership capacity and my ability to fundraise. So we'll see how that works out over the long term. But today I wanted to tell you a little bit about Central. Many of you may be familiar with Central Seminary, but I want to give you a little history because that's who I am. I'm a historian. So a little bit about Central's history, and then I'll tell you about our student population and how we deliver theological education in 2024, and sprinkle some student stories in along the way. Central was founded in 1901. So this year we're celebrating our 123rd anniversary. Kansas Baptist State Convention, leadership from that convention were the founders of the seminary. They set forth in the charter the purpose for Central to be to educate and train ministers of the gospel, missionaries, and teachers. And so that has remained our mission for these last 123 years. Central started off with the name Kansas City Baptist Theological Seminary. So that was one of my learning curves. I didn't know it had another name until after I became president. The doors were open for classes in October of 1901. They had 4 faculty members, 6 students, no beds for the students, no library, and no cash. So that's Central's beginning point, with no money and just a dream of providing theological education. By the next year, they had 45 students. So apparently they had a really good recruiting team working out in the Kansas, Missouri area. By 1903, Central had welcomed students from across denominational landscapes. So from early on, Central has been a very welcoming school of people from all other faith traditions, Methodist, Presbyterian, disciples of Christ. And so that still is part of who we are at Central, the welcoming of other denominations. By 1920, Central had students attending from 11 different countries. So very quickly, Central became a place in which people were welcomed from around the world. And that diversity has always shaped Central. It is part of our fabric, and it is continuing to shape us into 2024, welcoming students from countries. 1941, Central changed its name to Central Baptist Theological Seminary. So that's when it took on that understanding that it was a seminary for across the region, the Midwest, kind of in the center of the country, welcoming people from across the country, but mainly served students who came to us from Kansas and Missouri and Oklahoma. We have had, I said, we had a long relationship with other countries, students in other countries, but also we've had a long relationship, especially with students and faculty members from Myanmar. So then it was called Burma, but that relationship, is connected to Central's ties to the American Baptist Churches USA and to its first missionaries, Adoniram Judson and Ann Judson. So that relationship in Burma has been critical for Central for many, many years, since 1920, when we had our first students from Burma. First came from Burma to teach at Central, and we sent some professors there. We also had students who would come to us from Myanmar, Burma, and relocate to Kansas City to study. And so that's been a long history that continues to this very day. I'll skip forward. I won't do the complete year-by-year history, but Central, one of the things that I hold dear about Central is that Central has always had this conviction that we take theological education to students. We don't always require them to fit into our agendas or our schedule, but we look at what students are needing, where they are needing it, and seek to find ways we can meet students where they are. So in 2004, Central began a long distance learning program. And I'm really amused when I tell this story. So the professors would videotape the lectures. They would watch them, do their assignments, and mail the tapes back to Central. So that was our long distance learning program. Talk about adapting to the new ways of technology in the early 2000s of using videotapes. But that was one attempt to make sure students in Iowa, Minnesota, and the Dakotas had an opportunity to learn with Central. In 2006, you may have followed Central's history. In 2005, Central was deeply in trouble financially, declared financial exigency for the seminary, moved from the old campus in Kansas City, Kansas, and bought a new building in Shawnee. And that was a time of great struggle. There were faculty and staff who were let go because there was no money to pay them. And Central basically had a restart in 2006 in a new space, and a new place, starting over in Shawnee, Kansas. And that building in Shawnee is where we are currently located at 6601 Monticello Road. But that was a turning point in Central's history for us. After 2006, 2007, all kinds of things began to happen for Central. We began establishing new learning sites in other states, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Wisconsin, so that students wouldn't have to drive to Kansas City to receive education. They could learn from faculty members who traveled to them. In 2007, we also established a joint program, Doctor of Ministry degree with Myanmar Institute of Theology. That DMin program continues to this day. It's been funded by a grant, and we are about to receive our final cohort that's part of that grant program. They will come hopefully in July to be on our campus to study. It's been a real challenging season for our students from Myanmar. I'm sure you're aware that the pandemic hit hard in that country. There weren't the medical facilities needed to treat all of the ones who eventually developed COVID. In January 2021, there was a political coup that overturned the democratically elected government in Myanmar. They have since been ruled by the military, and there has been conflict, deep conflict and revolution happening in that country that has had a profound impact on our students. They have a hard time getting visas to come to the U.S. We have not allowed our faculty to return to Myanmar to teach since 2021. Well, since 2020 in the pandemic, but because the U.S. State Department has a red zone as part of Myanmar that is not a safe country, we have not felt it safe for our faculty to enter that country. So we receive students, we teach them on Zoom from Myanmar, but we have not yet been back in country to be with them in person at their commencements or to teach classes. So that all happened in 2007. Another thing that happened in 2007, Central began to offer online theological education. And some of you may remember online as it was in 2007, the discussion boards, the emails back and forth. It wasn't in person or face-to-face as virtual learning is now, but it was all on the computer. And so Central did that early on. We were one of the early adopters of online education in that modality. But eventually, our classes moved to Zoom. Central started using Zoom for classroom teaching in 2015. So we were Zooming long before many other people were using Zoom as a platform for teaching and for gathering together. And we've done that ever since. Zoom continues to be our primary way of holding class. Our students come to us from across the country and around the world, and we use Zoom as the way that brings them together. In 2007, because we had launched a new way of doing class, 2017, Central became one of the first seminaries in the U.S. and Canada to receive approval from the Association of Theological Schools to offer a fully online Master of Divinity program. So we were a leader in that, a trailsetter in theological education virtually, and we continue to do that. That's part of the way we offer education these days. Just a couple other notes of history. In 2020, we established a partnership with Campbell University in Seoul, South Korea, to offer a joint Doctor of Ministry degree. So we, again, reached outside of our country to establish international partnerships and continue to relate to many Korean Americans and Koreans in our programs. I left off one important date. 2011, we established a Korean language program that offers a full slate from diploma all the way to Doctor of Ministry degrees. So we are an international school. We are global. We offer school education to students across the United States and around the world. We are very different looking from the seminary that I attended, the two seminaries in which I have taught. Central is unique in so many ways in the way that it is so diverse. We teach across difference every day. We have students who come to us who are very, very progressive. We have students who are very, very conservative. They sit often in the same classrooms and learn together. And one of our key values at Central is empathy. And so we ask for respect in classrooms, allowing students to hear from different perspectives and to find a safe, healthy space in which they can learn together with people who may not think like them, may not have the same faith experience or the same faith background. So that's a little bit of our history, and I hope that I didn't bore you too much with history, but it is my favorite thing to talk about. I did want to tell you some about who our students are in 2024. We currently, in this spring time, we have 459 students enrolled across all of our programs. So we offer certificate programs, diploma programs, master's level programs, and Doctor of Ministry. So we offer a full slate of all different kinds of programming and degrees. And taken together, we have 459 students, which is a really good place to be in 2024. We have 104 Doctor of Ministry degrees, and we have 4 tracks in our Doctor of Ministry program: an English language creative leadership track, missional church in Korean, and our missional church that is a partner with Calvin University, and then the Myanmar Theological Institution. We have a track with them. So those 4 tracks give us 104 students who are working toward a Doctor of Ministry degree. We have 91 students in our Master of Divinity degree. We offer it both in English and in Korean, so it's in 2 languages. One of the crazy things to me about Central is we have semesters for our language programs, and we have terms, 3 terms a year for English language. So when I started at Central, I realized that Central Seminary is a school that never sleeps. We have classes that are happening throughout the calendar year, sometimes around the clock. So we just never sleep. Looking at the calendar last week, I saw we have 3 weeks in August where there are no classes at Central, and a week and a half in December, January. So with the exception of 5 weeks a year, we have classes all year long. So finding a space where there's nothing happening at Central is almost impossible. We always have something going on. Another degree program we have is a Master of Christian Care and Counseling in our Korean program. We have 29 students studying in that area. We also have a Master of Arts in Counseling that is clinically based. We have 27 students. Both of these were fortuitous, started in 2020, 2021, offering counseling programs in the midst of all the mental health crisis that was connected with the pandemic. And so really, it's been a great blessing to Central to offer counseling programs to make sure that there are enough counselors to deal with all the people who are struggling in communities around mental health issues. We have a Master of Arts in Theological Education degree. We have 8 students in that program. And we have 3 diploma programs. A Korean language program for diploma that has 80 students. A diploma in Kachin, one of the tribal languages of Myanmar, and we have 28 students. And then we have an English language diploma that has 4 students. We also offer 2 certificate programs in English, one in chaplaincy and one in peace and justice ministry. So whatever kind of educational opportunity you need, Central pretty much has it if you're interested in theological education, from certificates to Doctor of Ministry. It's a pretty wide span of offerings that we provide for students and for learners. Not all of our students are looking toward vocational ministry. Some of them are just looking to learn. But we have students serving as pastors, church leaders, some who are counselors, chaplains, nonprofit leaders, teachers, And so that mission in 1901 really has lived out. We are providing education and training for ministers of the gospel. And our definition of minister is expansive and inclusive of all those who feel called to use their gifts for God's work in the world. I know I've thrown a lot of numbers at you. I've got some more that I can throw at you, and then I'll take a pause and let you ask a few questions. Looking at where we are in 2024, our numbers are down a bit from the fall, about 6%. For the total head count, about 2% for our FTE, our full-time equivalent students, which is the measurement that we look at most closely. The ebb and flow of enrollment in all higher education kind of comes and goes. And so we have stayed pretty steady since 2020, despite the pandemic and despite all the other challenges that seminaries are facing in these years. So I feel really good about our enrollment. Just a few more things about our enrollment. We have students in 37 states, U.S. states, and in 11 countries this spring. So we really are scattered throughout the world and across the U.S. 10% of our students are white and 8% are Black. 32% Asian and 52% international. Many of our international students are either from Korea or Myanmar, but we also have students in Vietnam and China, New Zealand. So it really does span the globe as we reach out to welcome and provide education across the world. 55% of our students are female. So we have 43% male, 2% who did not identify gender. So 55% female. I'm proud of that we are educating women for ministry and leadership. The median age of our students is 43. So most of our students are a second career, sometimes third career. They come looking for a new calling, a new vocation. They are people who already have jobs or they're tied to a church already. They're not ready to move to Kansas City or to any other place because they're invested in the church where they are serving or in the community they're serving. So the offering of Zoom courses is advantageous for them. Most of our students have a full-time job. Some of them are full-time in churches. Some of them are working 2 jobs. Many of them have children. So they have very busy lives. And Central offers our classes in the evenings so that students can fit this into their very busy lives. It's kind of a crazy thing for all of us, but it works for students, and that's where Central has been all of these years, is to make sure that students receive the kind of education that they're looking for. Just one other statistic. If you've been paying attention to theological education in the last 15 years or so, you'll know that the Master of Divinity is slowly sliding off the cliff at all schools in the US and Canada. It's the longer degree. It's the degree that all of you probably received. It's the degree that I received. But many of the students who come to us, the prospective students and the students who are enrolled, are looking for shorter degrees. And one of the reasons is because they're very much aware now of educational debt. And many students are not open to thinking about taking on more educational debt. They also don't want to spend 4 years working on a Master of Divinity. They want to get a degree and go ahead and move into the ministry that they are either currently serving in or the one that they are feeling called to. So it has reshaped the way that we do things at Central to look at what is it that students are needing from us? How can we provide that? And one of the gifts for me at Central has been that we are nimble. We can adjust quickly and respond to need in ways that sometimes bigger universities cannot. Central's always been adaptive, looking at how we can change to meet the need of the moment, to meet societal needs, as well as congregational need. We've often done it with imagination. I think sending videos in the mail was imaginative and creative. Moving online for our classes was also creative and imaginative. Moving in the ways that we use them, into the ways we build community with students with Zoom is also imaginative and creative and very hopeful for me. So those are a few of the things I wanted to share. I have some other information about where we're headed next, but I thought I would pause if anyone has any questions or thoughts that they'd like to throw at me. Okay. Well, if you end up having a thought, you can, I think there's a raise your hand thing that you can do on Zoom. Oh, Ruth, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to ask, so what kind of adjustments are you making to the Master of Divinity, for example?
Well, one of the things we are looking about at the Master of Divinity is moving towards some shorter MA programs that are more specific. Right now, we have a Master of Arts in Theological Education that is geared toward preparing students for academic work. And that's not what they're wanting. They're wanting more practical degrees. So we're looking at, in the next few years, offering a Master of Arts in maybe Christian ministry that would give them kind of the basic foundations, biblical foundations, theological foundations, but then give them some really practical kinds of classes, which is what they want. You know, they want some preaching classes. They want to learn how to use technology in their churches and in their ministries. They want, you know, to understand finances because that's become more and more important in seminary education, providing you're going to end up places looking at budgets and you know, running programs and having to be very attuned to the bottom line financially. So that's in the make at Central. We are looking at that and ways that we can offer a program that is going to be both accessible to students educationally, but also be able to fit into their lives as far as where they are in the journey. When you have students who are 43 years old coming to seminary, they've already got life experience, they've had job experience. They're not the 22-year-old that I was when I went to seminary. They have much more knowledge and wisdom. So some of the things that I learned in seminary, you know, they already know. So providing just the foundations for theological education and then the practical ministry related skill sets that they are looking for is what we're hoping to do with new master's programs.
Thank you.
And that is a direction that most every other seminary in the United States is looking at, and many of them have already moved that direction. So Central's not alone in all of this. In the Master of Divinity kind of falling off the cliff, it's happening at every school across the nation and in Canada.
So Pam, do you see Episcopalians and Methodists and Presbyterians and Roman Catholics moving away from the MDiv? And right now, those would seem to be, and maybe not Presbyterians, but certainly Episcopalians and Methodists and Roman Catholics, the MDiv is the credential that you need to be ordained through the connectional denomination. So are they the only one? Are they the last holdouts?
And that is, they may be the last holdouts. We've begun to see some changes in schools who have historically used MDiv as, you know, the pathway to ordination, even in the pathway to chaplaincy as well. Some of those guidelines, they're beginning to get, you know, there's some movement and students are asking for that. But, you know, I don't know that the Catholic Church is going to let go of the MDiv anytime soon, but like freestanding, the ecumenical schools, even Methodists and Presbyterian are talking about other ways to provide the education. Do I think all that credentialing will eventually move? I think so, because students are going to demand it, and students are the ones we serve. And for Central, that is, you know, in Baptist life, there is no requirement that you have an MDiv. Well, in Cooperative Baptist Fellowship life and even Southern Baptist, American Baptists do have some expectations around students, but some of that has begun to shift even in ABC life. So there's some holdouts, but I think it's the marketplace of students will call for changes over the next 10 years.
Pam, this is Andy Rawls. I wanted to ask a question about funding. how is Central Seminary funded these days? And do the students supply a major part of that funding, or are you getting funding elsewhere?
Well, that's a really good question, right, Andy? Because I talk about funding all the time. It's fundraising is the big part of my job. I have a senior director of development, so we do raise a significant amount of our funding through donations from churches and denominations and individuals and grants from foundations. So about 55 to 60% of our revenue comes from sources that are not student-based. Our students provide about 45% with tuition and fees for Central's budget. Many of our students who come to us have not had the resources to enroll in seminary before. We don't have the students who have families who support them or have the financial capacity to pursue theological education. So we are committed to providing low tuition and to providing financial aid for our students. We do that generously as we can, but money is always a struggle with seminaries, and it's a struggle with Central to make sure that we have enough to cover all of our costs, to make sure the students receive the quality of education, and that we pay people and our faculty a good rate rather than expecting them to work for very little money. We try to pay at a good level. So I would say fundraising is significant at Central, but students do balance a budget, but only about 45% at this point. So
Pam, how many
we don't have a
students
big
do you-
denomination that supports us like the Southern Baptist or churches do. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask how many students you have from Myanmar.
Right now we have 4. I'm sorry. For Myanmar?
Yes.
Wow. So that's a number I do not have at the top of my head. The interesting thing that has happened to us since 2020, 2021 is that we've had this DMIN joint program with Myanmar Institute of Theology. But many of our students, especially Chin students from Myanmar, have decided to enroll in our English language program. So they come to the United States and study with us for 3 to 4 years and then go back.
Mhm.
So I would, and I'm counting in my head now. I think we have about 60% of our DMIN students in our English language program are from Myanmar, which is probably, if I had to put a number, it'd be around 20. So 20 of the 40 that are in the English language program. But we also have students from Myanmar enrolling in our Master of Divinity, as well as our Master of Arts and Theological Studies. So they are kind of embedded throughout our programs.
Mhm.
We have this Kachin diploma program that comes out of Nebraska, where I actually am in Nebraska today. So they can offer classes in Kachin. We also have a partner with Judson Communities, and they offer our education in Burmese or Korean and sometimes in Chin. So I need a number. I don't have a solid number of
Right.
students from Myanmar, but it's significant to the number of students we have.
Great opportunity.
It is, and it feels like their life has been so disrupted and so difficult. Many of them have encountered violence in their communities, persecution because they are people of Christian faith. They have very limited access to resources as far as financial resources, but even the internet. They'll be in class on Zoom and they turn off the electricity in their town and they have to use generators or their cell phone. So the difficulties they have in coming to class were unimaginable to me until I began leading at Central. We had a doctor of ministry student who came to class one night on Zoom and was with his fellow students. It was his night to present. And so he did his paper and presented to his classmates. And then they started asking him questions. And one of them said, tell me about what's going on with the wall behind you. There's something on the wall back there. And he said, oh, those are the bullet holes. They shot at my house last night. The military came by and shot at my house. And he showed up for class, prepared to present. And I cannot even imagine the challenges and the pain that it to receiving it at Central. And so we see this really as a ministry and our opportunity to give back. And oftentimes they give way more to us than we offer to them. Any other questions?
I have a question about the nature of seminary life with classes spread around the world in many different languages. Do you actually have professors there where you are in your location, or when you have a faculty meeting, I assume it's on Zoom? How many people are actually there where you are as part of the seminary?
Well,
Yes, I'm asking what your
we
campus
have
is actually like.
And I can share that with you. We have what we call standing faculty, which are like the full-time recognized faculty, and then we have supplemental faculty who are our adjuncts. So we have approximately, I'm trying to think, I think there are 12 standing faculty. Some of those are in the Kansas City area, and they occasionally come into our building. Some come into the building more than others, but our faculty are teaching mostly from their homes. They don't spend a lot of time on campus. We have just done a new hire for a new faculty member, and he's not moving to Kansas City. And that's the beauty of our Zoom experience and teaching virtually. We can get some of the best professors, and they aren't expected to root up their life and come live in Shawnee, Kansas. They can stay wherever they are and teach remotely. So faculty academic team meetings, faculty senate, all of those happen on Zoom. We gather together. Faculty Senate meets once a month, and academic team meets once a week to discuss all of the needs that are going on. One of the things that we have learned is that building community can happen on Zoom. You all have experienced this. You meet together on Zoom on a regular basis, and community continues to happen. So we have chapel on Zoom once a month, and we invite our entire student population and faculty and administration to come to chapel. We have convocation twice a year, and everyone comes, and we dress up in our regalia on Zoom, which is kind of fun and odd, but still works. We do have commencement, in-person commencement, and we've done that since 2022. We went back to in-person in 2022. And it's oftentimes like a homecoming because students have been in class together. Some of them up to 4 years, they've sat in Zoom rooms together, and they come to commencement and meet for the first time. So there's a lot of crying and a lot of laughing and a lot of hugging. It's just like a family reunion, and it's a beautiful thing. So, but for many students, that's the first time they've ever been on Central. It's the first time they've ever met their faculty member or their fellow students in person because they've been on Zoom together. I would say we do have some in-person classes. Because we have counseling programs that have state regulations for licensure, some of our counseling students are in person on campus for some classes. Our international students have some in-class requirements. Sometimes that's on the Shawnee campus, and sometimes it's on our other sites. We have sites in Dallas, Houston, Austin, Atlanta, Chicago, Seattle, and LA. So we have 7 sites across the country. All of them are part of our Korean language program. And then our Doctor of Ministry students come to campus a few times a year for intensive. So they're there 4 or 5 days learning together, and then do the rest of their learning on Zoom. So it's a very quiet building. Some days there are no students at all. Most days there are no students at all. they seem to all come at once and then they're gone. Most of our faculty are not on campus the majority of the time. So we have 45,000 square feet of a very large building with some days we have 6 to 8 people in the building. And that's a really different world. And I can tell you about where we're going with that if there are no more questions that anyone has.
I
Any
have
other
one.
questions? Yes, sir.
Yes. I know that a good while back, some folks came over from Midwestern to be on your faculty. Do you have anyone still on the faculty that came from Midwestern?
Well,
Like-
we have, our Bob Johnson.
Yes.
We had our Bob Johnson was our provost, and he retired last May. And David May, who's our New Testament professor, is retiring this July. So
Okay,
those are our last two that taught at Midwestern.
Okay. David was the primary person I was interested in,
Oh.
so it doesn't seem like he should be retiring. But
Oh, yes, it does. David's a classmate of mine, so
He's been
Pam,
at
what
Central for
is your-
32 years, so he's
Yeah.
ready to retire.
yeah.
Thank you.
What is your
And we bless that
connection
when we-
with CBF? Do you
CBF,
have
so we-
any kind of formal connections or interactions with CBF? I know you would
we,
accept.
we are historically American Baptists, but CBF has been a partner since the founding of CBF. We don't receive funds from them. We get some scholarships for students, but we are actively a part, and I'm actively a part of the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship as far as attending their gatherings and being active in the things that CBF does. So there's some officialness in that we do have a recognized partnership. We have board members who are part of the CBF. So we have ABC board. We do have a 40% expectation that 40% of our board will be American Baptists. We try to give a nod to our historic roots with ABC. But you know me, Larry, I've been CBF since it was founded, so that's not going away anytime soon.
What are you doing for library learning resources? Are you in the Digital Theological Library?
So Central joined the Digital Theological Library in 2019. And it looks like I'm having some trouble with my bandwidth on I hope you're still able to hear me. I think it's better, I hope. We joined the Digital Theological Library in 2019. And so Central, we have a print collection of about 77,000 books, but the DTL well over 1 million books. So our students all across the country and all around the world have access to this digital library that they can get, books and resources, journal articles at home on their computer. So we are in the midst of transferring more of our assets to the DTL so that we will have most of our resources available there as well. So, but it's been a great asset and providing for students who are learning virtually, you have to provide them with access to a library, and they're not going to come to Shawnee from South Carolina. So that's the way that we have chosen. It's been a really good partnership for us.
Any pushback from Higher Learning Commission on that? Okay.
No.
Forgive me, I'm
In fact,
doing research.
ATS and HLC. Yes. There's actually an expectation from HLC and ATS that we provide resources for our students. Yeah. And because they are so scattered, and this is the only way that we can do this. So there's been a lot of assistance in that. And so one of the things I was going to tell you about some of our plans. One of those is as we look at resourcing our students, we are moving away from a print library. We'll keep a very small print library with reference materials and some reserve materials. But a DTL is coming to campus on April 15th to start boxing up many of our books to take them and add them to the Digital Theological Library, which will shrink our library footprint. But we did research for about 2 years. There was one term, one 12-week period that we had 4 books checked out. So students not coming into our library to use our resources. And my librarian said to me, we don't want to be a warehouse for books. We want to be actively engaging our students with our resources. And she is right. We've got to provide resources that are accessible and that are important for them to learn. And it's not print resources housed in Shawnee, Kansas. Any other questions?
One final for me. How do you keep your sanity?
You just lost.
How do I keep my sanity? Yeah.
I-
The students really are what keeps me sane. And having, I think my internet's coming in and out. I'm sorry. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I hope so. Yeah. So the students are what keeps me sane. And I was going to tell you a student story. And this is one of the students who really kind of holds me and grounds me to do this work. She came to us 3 years ago. She's a 3rd-year student now in our MDiv program. But she came and enrolled at Central after a traumatic loss in her life. She was pregnant and gave birth to a child who was had died in utero, so a child that was not breathing. And she had been a person who grew up in a Christian family, had sensed a call to ministry, and had never followed through with it. And after the death of her child, her baby, she had this moment where she said, you know, I'm going to either have to answer this call from God or I'm going to have to leave. And when she told that to me, she said, and by leave, she didn't mean leave church. She meant leave the faith, that it was such a traumatic experience that she was going to walk away completely from God or she needed to give herself fully to God. And she chose to come to Central. Her pastor told her about us. And she came to and enrolled in Central. The things that happened for her is that her fellow students rallied around her. They encouraged her. They supported her. They prayed for her. When she did eventually have another child, they sent her baby books for her new little boy. And it was a transformational experience. Not only was she educated, but she was cared for. And so Central has been a life-changing part of experience for her. And because of her story and the stories of so many of our other students, that's what keeps me sane. That's what keeps me grounded, that this is the calling God is me to make sure that students like this one receives what she needs from Central, and that the students that we have in Myanmar receive what they need. So students are what keeps me sane. Accrediting agents, lawyers, professors, they don't keep me sane. Students keep me sane. So they are my heart.
You.
I did want to tell you about kind of the future of Central. We released in November of 2023 a document, a strategic initiative called The Future is Central. Our board of directors voted on this initiative, and it includes 3 pieces. So the first piece has to do with our building, our very large building with no students in it. Now has a for sale sign out in front of it. So we are selling our building, hoping to move to a much smaller space that is right-sized for us. For those of you who own homes, you know that all your extra resources go into your air conditioning and your leaks and your roof. So we at Central spend a whole lot of money on a building and keeping it running with no students. So we're downsizing, right-sizing so that we can put our resources towards students rather than toward an empty building. And we have this for sale sign out. We hope to have a buyer and complete that deal, and by next year be in another space. So that's happening in the midst of all of this. The second part of our initiative had to do with the new programs. And I told you about some of those. Our new Vice President of Academic Affairs, Kathy Maxwell, is leading our faculty to do an evaluation of our curriculum and look at what program would best fit into our curriculum, but also what is most needed from students. So listening to students and prospective students about their needs, if it's relevant for them in 2024, is a big part of what we'll be doing in this next year as we prepare to launch some new programs in 2025. And then the third piece we have going on right now is because our students are so under-resourced financially, we have a campaign going on right now, 100 scholarships dollars to make sure that students have the kind of scholarships they need in order to be able to pursue theological education. And that's going really well. So we're looking forward to being able to have more resources for our students in the upcoming year. So I'm excited about all of those. We're not doing that from a place of desperation, but a place of realism and proactive work toward the future. And I'm excited about Central's future. I think we're in a really good place right now, both with enrollment, with finances, and with the future. And yes, we have talked to HLC and ATS about all of this, Steve. So they know our plans and are helping us move forward.
I'm sure, and I know that that ATS has been concerned for quite a while about especially the freestanding seminaries and those that don't have the resources of a large university behind them. And so
yes,
it seems to me that that particularly ATS is going to have to get a little bit more nimble than they may have been in the past. I'm not worried about HLC. HLC has a pretty good track record for being nimble, to be honest.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So we had a visit from HLC last March and got a to do that. So they looked at both our finances and our plans for the future and gave us a gold star. And I felt really good about that. ATS, the last time they came, also gave us a tenure. So we're in good standing with our accreditation agencies, right? But you know, that's
Pam, I'm fascinated by the rich history of the seminary, and I just want to applaud you for your efforts and all that you're doing to coordinate all these different programs and the leadership that you're providing. So kudos to you. I'm just really thrilled to hear about what you're doing.
thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate those kind words.
You know, Pam, it also strikes me as I listen to you that that in the past, the seminaries and faith-based colleges have not been very good at coordinating what they do. And we've all had friends who went to the Baptist college and felt like the first year of their MDiv, if not the first 3 semesters of their MDiv, were very repetitive. And neither the seminaries nor the colleges ever talked to each other and tuned that up. It sounds to me as if one of the ways to redeem the pieces of the MDiv that are going to be lost when we go to 30 and 45-hour programs might be to seriously have conversations with places like William Jewell and others to say, you know, how about you start a program that really gets them through the first year of seminary, and we take the last, and we think about spiritual formation seriously from the religion major on through the seminary degree, and in a partnership. It seems that ATS might be interested in going that direction.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. That, you know, my first year in seminary, I slept through most of it because I learned all of it at Baylor. So that's a good word.
Yeah, those of us who went to public universities didn't sleep through, unless we had the professors that put us to sleep, and I had a couple of those. Yeah,
that's another story.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody else have anything? We don't want to keep Pam away from doing some work.
Well, I'm currently in Omaha at the Prairie Pastors Conference, the
Oh.
pastors from the Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas, Minnesota, Iowa, and Oklahoma. So
Yeah.
it's a gathering of all these pastors in the Midwest. And
Yeah,
so it's been lots of preaching and lots of singing and lots of learning.
wonderful.
So I've enjoyed
Well,
that.
I've been blessed and surprised. I've learned a lot today, and thank you for what you're doing.
Well,
And it's back to you, Bob. See where we go now.
I guess we're through unless somebody else has, but okay, you folks that know, let me then switch something. We have a new pastor at a significant Black church here in Louisville who says that he got a Master of Divinity degree from Mercer University in 2019, that he served as an ministry associate at Smoke Rise Baptist Church. His name is Darian Waite. You all know Darian?
I do. So I
You
do.
know his wife?
Chelsea, yes, she was in my classes at
His
McAfee.
wife, they are rather close to me over here. And his wife preached Sundays a week ago, and she's about as good as anybody. I don't know if you've ever heard her.
I have. So she's amazing.
So they are. Do you know Bob? Bob, do you know them? No, he's muted. But anyway, this is what they put out at the church here. So he went to Morehouse. He served on the pastor for and men's ministries at Ebenezer in Atlanta, and a youth ministry resident at First Baptist Atlanta, Huntsville. So he's got a lot of Anglo church experience as well. But he's going to be a power. He's going to be a powerhouse here, I can tell you. So you have taught them, did you say? Did you?
I had Chelsea. I didn't have him in my class. I had Chelsea.
So
Baptist
you
history
taught
class.
them?
Yeah.
Are you his wife?
Yes, Chelsea. I know her.
Okay, okay.
And they have a young daughter who's, I think, 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah, very small. That's the picture of the daughter.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. They are gifted and energetic and just ready to take on the world, because they're good McAfee graduates, Larry.
They both use a very detailed manuscript, but both of them still preach like a Black preacher.
Yeah.
And last Sunday, he did this mimicking of an old Black preacher as a part of a point he was making. It just came out of the clear blue, and I was just amazed. So I think they're going to stir up things in Louisville. Anyway, thank you for Pam, all of this. I spent 11 years in Kansas City, so I love the place and love your seminary and hope it goes well.
Thank you, Bob. Well, come back and see us and have some barbecue. It's a good place for barbecue.
Folks, I don't recall right offhand what our next program is, but somebody should know, maybe. Or anyway, we have it planned. It'll be out in 2 months.
Thank you very much, Pam. We appreciated this, and we'll post it on YouTube, so people who missed it will be able to see it, and I'll send a notice to everybody with the link. Thanks again.
Andy, could I say one thing? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Pam, Bob Browning, I just want you to know what a wonderful role model you are for all of us, but especially our daughters and our granddaughters. And you're such a visionary and so articulate in speaking about that vision you're an alternative voice for Baptists, and I couldn't be prouder and happier that you are where you are. We need you, Pam. Baptists need you so much, and our churches need you. So keep up your good work, keep speaking, keep being prophetic, and keep leading.
Thank you, Bob. That means a lot to me.
Anything else?
Bob? This
Yes.
is Gary.
Yes. Which
Uh,
Bob?
You said something about the next program.
Yes.
According to what you sent us, May 2024, Andy Rawls with a taped interview of June Honeycutt.
Yes.
And
That's right.
in
That's right.
July,
Okay.
Rhonda Evans, pastor in Florida, would be our guest. Those are the next two planned programs, at least.
Right. Yeah, you're frozen up now, but I heard what you said. Yeah.
Okay, thank you all. I'm going to stop the recording
Okay.
now, and we look forward to seeing you in 2 months.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you,
Pam.
Pam.
Thank you.
It's great being with you. Thank you.